one of the weird things about this book, so we're going to review today, How to Take Smart Notes by Sanka Arons, is that the spine's upside down. Notice that? Get your copy if you got one. The spine's upside down. So I put it on the bookshelf this way. I got to read up as opposed to down. Other than that, so we're going to look at How to Take Smart Notes by Sanka Arons, which is the whole Zettelkasten thing, which I've talked a lot about with Obsidian, and lots of people are talking about right now. I've had this on my list for a long time. Finally read it just say a couple weeks ago. Buckle up. The idea behind How to Take Smart Notes is that there's tons of writing advice out there for the writing portion, but there is very little and bad advice out there for like the whole note-taking portion. And honestly, a lot of your writing life, in air quotes, is going to be the note-taking portion. So we have less advice for the thing you do most of the time, right? Developing your ideas, getting to that point. And a lot of, even the advice around that is, hey, start by brainstorming because you have no ideas yet. This book is designed to help you take smart notes, have a good system so that when you get to the blank page portion, you just have to basically write through your notes. Now, to do that, there are 3 types of notes. One is your fleeting notes, just ideas you have as you go through the day. And kind of anything you read an article like, oh, that might be a good note, and you might put it in. This could even be like, oh, I have an article I want to read, so I'm going to send it to my Instapaper queue, my DevonThink I use DevonThink as a read it later service. You're going to send it to that, and then you're going to maybe, later you're going to actually see, is there an idea valid in this to go into one of your other types of notes? Number 2 is your literature notes. For me, that's this notebook. So as I read a book, I actually take like handwritten notes in here. I use it as a filtering function because if it's not worth writing down, it's just not worth it. And then out of those 2 notes, things move into your permanent notes. That's the only thing that should be populating your, say, Obsidian or Roam or your knowledge system. Your Zettelkasten, which means Slipbox, is your permanent notes. And these are not quotes from books necessarily. They're certainly heavily weighted away from quotes. And they're really based around the ideas that you have based on the reading you've done. That's it. They're not based on, it's far too easy to quote something and think you understand it. But when you have to explain it, then you have to understand it. You have to understand it. You have to explain it. You might have to do research. I find that all the time when I'm taking notes in a book. I actually have to go back and be like, oh, I didn't understand that, but I write down the page number. So I actually go back and I may read a couple pages again and be like, okay, that's what the idea was. And here's how it connects into the overall theme. And I'm never going to write that down. Or I am going to write that down, whatever the case may be. Now, outside of those 3 notes, there's actually one other type of note that Arons mentions. He mentions the topic note. This is very similar to what I've heard called the shoebox method. And the shoebox method is 3x5 cards. And when you have a project, you just put it in a shoebox. That's it. So that's a topic note. I have one for keeping connecting ideas, which links to Zettelkasten and the shoebox method and the note card system and like IMF and commonplace books. And it's one note that links out to a whole bunch of different systems on how to take notes, on how to keep your research. And I will continue to keep that topic note or project note, right? If I was doing a project on knowledge management systems, and I had physical cards, I'd take all those cards that related to that and put them in one project. Now, as far as tips on good notes, Arons recommends a few things. Biggest one being that take small notes. Take atomic notes is what he would say. And they would say that Niklas Luhmann, who actually kind of is the big person behind Zettelkasten, he did it along in the 70s, he did it a long time ago, right? And wrote tons of books and tons of other stuff. But a 3x5 card was a good limiter because if it took more than a 3x5 card, it was probably 2 ideas and you needed to put 2 separate cards. Now, you don't have this when you're using some digital system, right? I could write as long a note as I want in Obsidian. But what I have done, and if you check out my How I Take Notes on Books in Obsidian videos, which I'll link above, you'll see that I actually break up. I have a main note, kind of a topic note for the book, and then I break out the ideas in the book as far as like what's a key idea to the book and what's a key one for me to discover later, to think about more. And I break them up into separate notes on themselves, and then I relate those notes to other ideas and other books that work. On the topic of choosing a system, Arons recommends or says, and rightly so, that a system should be there to decrease complexity or to smooth your path towards the end goal. And the end goal of these systems is to write something, not to just collect a bunch of notes and be happy that you have a big collection. The goal is to produce some sort of content for consumption by other people. He talks a lot about writing, could be videos, could be talks, could be whatever. Writing, fine. In your system, Arons recommends 3 types of applications. First is for your literature notes, for your fleeting notes, just like an inbox type system. Second is for your bibliographic references. So Zotero is what he recommends. It's a nerdy bibliographic tool, and I don't use that. And then third is like your main knowledge management system, which is what I use Obsidian for. For my fleeting notes, for my literature notes, I use, like I said, the notebook I have here. I use that for one of them. That's my literature notes go here. And then they get moved into Obsidian, or I use DevonThink to save articles, to save ideas into the inbox, and I process the inbox about once a week. I process all of the inbox, go through the articles there, and find the ones that are really long-term useful to me, and pull those ideas out into my Zettelkasten, my Obsidian system, my Zettelkasten system. Like I already said, Arden says that the whole purpose of the system is to write, to produce some content for other people. I think that's a big disconnection for a lot of people, because most people that I really talk to honestly, even in the Obsidian chat sometimes, when you really talk to them, it doesn't seem like they're producing a lot of content out of it. They like the systems, they like searching for the tools, they like finding software and tools, but they're not actually going to produce a lot for other people. The true, what I call connectors, I suppose, are far dwarfed by the people who are collectors, right? Connectors are actually connecting ideas, producing something. Collectors are just collecting them for no reason and aren't probably going to do anything with it. So for you, I'd say make sure you're a connector, not a collector. Now, as far as should you read this book, I think absolutely yes. There's probably only one other book that I recommend as highly as this, and it's How to Read a Book, which is on the shelf behind me. How to Read a Book tells you how to read a book well, and this one tells you how to make smart notes, how to make notes well. I feel like most notes I wrote before I read this book are useless. They're just not the caliber they should be. I feel like most books I read before How to Read a Book, I didn't read them well enough. I didn't read them well. So now I'm lucky, because before I took this, I actually took literature notes. I have multiple books of all the books I've read with literature notes in them, with references. Right in here, there's cross references to other books I've read. So I can go through this and take my literature notes and port them for like the last 5 years into a Zettelkasten system, which is excellent. I am going to put time into that. But other stuff that I've taken, like other stuff I've read that's sitting in DevonThink, it's just not, I don't know what to do with it. Thousands of other notes in there that are just kind of sitting there dwarfed on their own that I honestly have never looked back at. Never really built a robust system around them. So I feel like they're kind of lost at this point. Even though Arons would say no one starts from scratch because you all read something at some point. So, should you read it? Absolutely. You should get it. You should also get How to Read a Book back there on my shelf. Links to both of them in the description below. And if you liked the video, you can give me a thumbs up. If you love the video, you can subscribe, hit the bell so that YouTube tells you about stuff, but make sure your device notifications are off so you can read books, stuff like that. And if you really loved it, you can go to patreon.com/CurtisMcHale, where you can support the channel. Ciao.